Hello and welcome to B2B Tech Talk, the podcast where two experts in the field of technology and business come together to discuss the latest trends and developments in the world of B2B. Join Enrique and Jose Enrique as they dive into the most exciting and innovative technologies driving the B2B landscape forward. Get insights, tips, and practical advice on how to leverage technology to drive your business success. So sit back, relax, and get ready to join the conversation on B2B Tech Talk.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the B2B podcast. Today we have a very important topic for me. It's a very topic close to my heart, which is user experience. We're gonna talk about what it means, user experience, what it means in the business context, how it brings value to your business, and how you can measure if you're doing good or bad in user experience. So we're gonna talk about everything related to that.
Yeah, and user experience is a really important topic. I think it's in many projects that I observe in the area of B2B is something that I have the impression sometimes that people underestimate a little bit. Like there are some user interfaces or experiences in business applications that are clunky. But what I think many people have to realize is that when people are using applications in their private life, they tend to be these beautiful things. And suddenly they switch to work, and sometimes they have one of the most, horrible user interfaces and user experiences. And it doesn't have to be that way. I think it increases user productivity, and you are really an expert in this area. I don't work in that. I'm really bad at designing stuff. I do like stick man and that kind of thing. So I'm not a designer. I don't know how to draw. But that's your business. That's the area that you invest. So I think people can learn a lot from what you have to say here. And let's do this like a kind of a dialogue. So I will play like in the what is that? The Platonic dialogues in which I'm the silly student and I will ask you questions. So
Sure,
what is user experience?
Yeah, very good question. It's a broad term, and everybody have a different definition of that. So basically, user experience, I always like to go to the etymology of the words. So you have users is the person or entity or whatever that is using, in my case, a system, so a software system. But it can also be a product that you buy in the store, like a toaster or like a mixer or like whatever electronic product. It can be a car. Also have user experience. They are very big investing in that. And then you have experience. Of course, experience is everything that you feel and go through when using one product. So if you feel frustrated when using a product, then the user experience is bad. If you feel like you are not accomplishing your task fast enough, the user experience is bad. Important stuff is if the system is slow, then the user experience is pretty bad. I remember before that anecdote, that basically is every touch point that the customer have with your product or your service. There is also service experience, which is part also the user experience. Is every touch point support, marketing with your product, everything belongs to the overall user experience. But let's concentrate in when the user is actually using the product, what experience they have. I cannot emphasize enough the velocity or the reactiveness of the system. Like if you have the impression that the system is fast, the user experience is good, because you see that it's responding fast to what you are doing. And when you make a mistake, then you can backtrack real quick because it's not a big deal. It's fast anyway. But if you have, for instance, like spend like half an hour filling this complicated form with this wizard with 3 steps, and then you save, and the system take like 1 minute to save, the assistant that take 1 minute to save and validate and whatnot. And then in the end, they say, oh, you forget something on page 1. Then you're very frustrated. But that means that we probably have to do the whole process again. So that is a very bad user experience.
Yeah,
we can, yeah, go ahead.
No, yeah, that really sucks. I mean, that's a real problem. And now that you were mentioning that about reactive or user interfaces or experiences that are fast and fluid, I was thinking that in most commercial or consumer applications, they tend to be really fast. Like people know that if you're opening an app or if you're in a website and it's really slow, then you just close it and you move to the next thing. However, in business applications, people have to stick there, even if it's annoying. People is struggling with it, and the question came to my mind: what is the main difference between B2C versus B2B experience in terms of user experience? Because I guess as a UI designer or as a user experience person, there are really clear differences between designing one system or the other kind of system. So what are your thoughts about there?
Yeah. So as you were saying, we are used to, since the advent of mobile, to kind of, if you don't like an app or you don't understand it in the first minute, you just deinstall or install the next one. Because there will be like 2-3 apps that do the same thing. It's just a matter of taste at this moment, like to deciding which one to use. In consumer, like B2C, it comes a lot to the user experience. Like if the app is appealing, then you're gonna stay there and use that more and more and more. So the main difference is depending on the goal that you have. So the goal of a B2C app, the goal of Instagram is different from the, let's say you have an inventory B2B inventory system in your company. So those goals are pretty different. So the goals with Instagram is like get you to post and get people in the app as long as possible. So they are in the business of attention, of getting attention, of minutes of people in the app so they can show you ads. That's the main business behind Instagram. I think everybody knows that, but yeah, that is. So they are in the business of attention. So they have to capture your attention. All the UX is related like for that. That's why you have an infinite scroll of pictures. You have an infinite scroll now of reels when you are bombarded with a lot of content that you stay in the app. Like the last example, one of the best example of attention grabbing stuff, other than games are also very addictive and are pretty much in the attention span business, is also TikTok. Like TikTok figure out a way to figure your taste out based on a lot of touch points, and they bombard you one video after the other, and you stay in the app and you spend like hours in that app. But that is part of the user experience. It was designed that way. Maybe at the beginning, if it wasn't designed that way, but right now there are people doing research and doing stuff to actually optimize that you don't go out of the app, like you stay there. So the goal of an inventory system or application or software that you have in your company is actually to manage the overall goal is to manage the inventory, to create reports, to tell you when something is missing, to tell you if there is a discrepancy between the warehouses, when you have to do an order, etc. So the main goal of the system, B2B business system, let's call it like that, in the enterprise software, is basically a broader goal. They don't care if the user spend like 10 hours on in front of the machine. They try to solve this business task. That is the goal. Like giving if you get a shipment, how do you enter the shipment into the system pretty quickly for the people that are on let's say on food on the warehouse. They get the boxes, They scan the boxes, the scanner is connected to the system, how the process works. And then actually a supervisor will supervise that shipment. Also there will give their okay, the things move on. So that is the goal of the B2 enterprise system. Now,
so it's essentially to fulfill a goal. Now, when you were talking about the gamification aspect of TikTok, it came to my mind, eons ago, I was working in the game industry. And at the time, I recall that the game industry was a really hot topic. So everyone wanted to do a game, and then gamification became a thing, was
Yes.
a hot topic. And I recall that at the time, gamification was something that also diffused a little bit into the business world, and people wanted to gamify business processes. So there was all these business applications that had leaderboard and scores, and you could win things and rewards, and you got like little stars and stuff, and try to motivate you to do things. Is that also part of this user experience thing, and how effective is all this gamification thing? Because I don't know if this is something that still persists in many business applications. I mean, I have not been too observant of that. I think some elements are, but what's your take on that?
Well, that is my personal opinion. Luckily, that fad went away long ago. So I remember the conversation, like, oh, we have to gamify everything. On that didn't fly very high, because instead of one of the reasons is it was difficult to implement, like come up with a gaming system to put on top of a business system, which is probably already complicated. So you're making it, you're adding another layer of complexity on top of that. So that's one aspect.
But there are games like I think you and me, we play a lot of StarCraft, at the time, and essentially there you are running a business. You're running a business, and you're running an army, and in the context of playing StarCraft, like, it was pretty effective.
It was definitely pretty effective. I mean, you're playing to win.
Yeah, you're managing a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
Yes. But the thing is, in a business context, you are not controlling the business. You are not controlling the company. In very few cases, you are controlling the company. You're doing one part. You're doing your job. You're doing your part, probably together with a team. So coming up with gamification rules on top of that, it was a little bit difficult to implement. On the other aspect that I wanted to talk is, like, if you have that on top, and then you focus on the points, like let's say you get points when you do stuff right or whatever, then people will basically try to game the system every time. And instead to do their work as they should, they will try to get the more points or try to win the game or whatever that was. So that was the two aspects of, in my opinion, like make it that the gamification fad go away locally, that like business processes and business software is complicated enough to put stuff on top of it. There are small software vendors that do serve businesses that they can do that still, but they are the minority. So I don't remember at the top of my head any of them. So it was a fad, but it went away really quick.
Yeah, I haven't seen much of that. But going back to the subject of measuring things and making people efficient, how do you measure the effectiveness of the whole user experience world? Like, I come from the analytics world, so in my world, we try to put a number on everything and model everything, not always in an effective manner, but that's at least that's the goal. I think it was Peter Drucker who said, I'm paraphrasing here, you can only control what you can measure, or something between those lines. And so how do you measure the effectiveness of a certain experience in a B2B application?
Yeah. So modern user experience design is around personas and around flows. Like you define one persona, like John, whatever, have to do this task on the system. And then you have different KPIs that you can measure. You can measure the velocity, so how long it takes for that person to do that, so how many steps. Or you can measure the success rate. Like if it's a very complicated process, you don't do any mistakes in the in between when you get to the optimal result. So it can be like you complete the task, but the results are not. You forget to introduce a couple of data that were not mandatory, or you have an incomplete result there. So you can measure in those points. One anecdote: back in the day in BlackBerry, you remember BlackBerry?
Yeah,
You had
sure.
a BlackBerry?
No, no. I
I
was late
one,
to the game.
the club one to go for
Okay.
going to the Oktoberfest. Because it doesn't matter. I lose it. It doesn't matter. But it broke so long time ago. So basically, the way that they measured it in BlackBerry back in the day, they were called like click counters. So basically, they will count how many clicks it takes to send an email, or how many clicks it takes to add a contact, or how many clicks it takes to install an application back in the day. So that was their main goal of measuring that. In the you can have for the that is in the B2B business that you measure like flows, velocity. You can also go like we do a lot is like research, right? Like before you start building whatever, before the first line of code, you have the design, right? Or you even have wireframe, doesn't have to have color, doesn't have to have anything. When you go to test with a real people, when you present that with a prototype, right? It's a prototype of the solution. And then you say, okay, this is the solution, try to do this, try to achieve this task. And please, in between, like, tell me what you're trying to do out loud. So usually that is recorded, when it's also with the consent of the test. There is a camera filming the reaction and stuff, so you can actually measure how the people feel on that. So yeah, you can actually do that kind of research. So because it doesn't scale that well, I mean, if you have enough resources, on enough researches, you can do like every test will take like 1 hour or something between introduction on presenting the prototype and doing the test itself. It's roughly 1 hour, so you can do basically 8 a day. So that doesn't scale that well. There are automated solutions where you can do that, but there are also, you have to know the system, you have to prepare the online solution, you have to recruit the right people, you have to pay because they're not free. This is more, it's more effort involved in doing it like online, like with this research services. It's a lot of more effort. It's scaled better if you pay and you do the effort to do that. It's scaled better when you get more statistic, when you get like replays of everybody, what everybody's saying, whatever. It's comfortable, but it's a lot of effort. What I like to do, nothing against that, if we had the resources, or sometimes we have the resources, it's not for everything, but it's more, what we do is like we get like 5-10 people and we test the prototype with them. And with more than 5, you have a very good idea on if what you're designing is good enough, or if people understand that or not. So every tester is different. Like sometimes you put a big call to action button, I mean a very big call to action in the screen, on the people testing and say, where do I have to click now? I don't know where I have to click now. It's a very big button that you put there and people don't see it. So that happened as well. So every test is really surprising. It's a Pandora box, let's say like that.
It reminds me. I was looking now here. I was running a search, here because some of the things that you talk about there regarding these test groups, bringing people there and recording them or watching them live interacting with the system,
Yeah.
remind me of this book of Jacob Nielsen. I don't know if you read that. I read that. I think it was still in the 90s. And he had these recommendations for websites, and that was really scary. I mean, at the time, I guess those paradigms have changed because that was the last time I read a user experience book, and that was back in the 90s. But I was thinking now that you were talking about that, because usually in the B2B, B2C space, if you want to optimize a user interface, you would run something like A/B test. Like I have a red button and I have a blue button, and I will run a split test, and they will try to see, well, you know what, the click-through rate is higher in the blue, and then I will keep making variations to the design, and I will try to control for one feature, but I will try to optimize to the design that works the best, and then people do like bandit algorithms to optimize the kind of thing. Do you see also that same analytical approach in the B2B environment, or is more driven towards these small groups of people where you run these tests and see how people react, or you run polls and you try to get user feedback, or how do you do that at scale?
Well, the first is to do A/B test. You have to have the technology platform to do that, integrated in your product. Not everybody do have that. It's one thing, the technical aspect. The other aspect is like the telemetry. You have to collect the data, right? For that, maybe you don't have the consent, or you have to use a third-party software that you don't know what they are going to do with the data. So basically, introducing that kind of service in the enterprise software is a little bit tricky. Like, because in the enterprise software, you have access to the business data, right? So you don't want to bring like an external whatever into it. At least there are a lot of businesses that have these concerns, right? But from my experience, the main problem that they have with A/B testing is the technology aspect. Like when you're building your product, you don't start to building the A/B testing framework, because it means that for the same feature, you have to program the same feature like twice. It's the same for design. You have to design it twice. So it's easier to release one version or test early, right? You release one version, you collect data to test it with your customers. If you get a lot of escalations from that feature, then you did something wrong, definitely. that's a one KPI that you get that you could use. It's the worst one, but it's one. Basically, is like the technical aspect. Actually, you have to do everything double. On the return of investment is greater in, let's say, e-commerce sites. Like at the end of the day, if you are testing two designs, if people buy more with design B, is a big return of investment.
Okay, we were talking about the different features, how you measure, if you use A/B test, what do you use? But now another question that I think is very interesting is, how do you optimize for different devices? Because now, business move across different devices. So you have people working on desktops, but you also have people on site working in their mobile devices or working in a tablet. So you have different form factors, but oftentimes it's the same application that has to run in all these different form factors. So how do you think in terms of form factors and the user experience, how do you measure that? How do you bring that to the B2B space?
Yeah. Well, that is something that's called responsiveness in web development. It's like right now, since software as a service is the big things, like all the enterprise software is in a web page. So basically, you use the same principles. And for that, you have to design to, like, basically what a lot of people do, and I think it's a very good way to do it, is like you start designing for the minimal factor. like the smallest screen. Let's say if you want to get to the phone, to the font size, that is fine. Then you move to tablet and you add stuff to it. So basically, that way. You can also start with a big screen and then scrap stuff in between till you get a bare bones functionality in your phone. One thing that have been done in the past in a lot of companies that we have been work with is, since I've been working in enterprise software and they have like complicated interfaces with drag and drop sometimes, a lot of fields, etc. So, but one principle that I like to use is if you have an informative screen where you can see, like, I don't know, a report, metrics, a dashboard, a list of customers, a list of whatever, task list, something like that. It should work in every screen, no matter what. Like, you have to work. Like, if you drop a coffee in your laptop, you have to use your phone to get your email, right? Your email have to work in your phone. Same way, business critical information, you need to have access. So that's my philosophy. Like, business critical information or information that you see when you don't edit, you don't modify it. It should be in all the screens. You have to also make, you can make also the conscious decision, like in some products having work, like we can only support like small laptops, like 1024 pixels wide. That is our minimum resolution. Minimum that the system, you have to scroll a lot or whatever you do. Yeah, we don't support that. Because for the complexity of the system, we assume that the user is not gonna do that on the phone, in the metro, or whatever. But I still try, in those cases, I still try to at least design or make it the responsiveness methodology or methods that they work for the informational screens. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I now when you were talking about it, I was thinking about rugged environments, like, I don't know, people who's working in the construction or in the military, environments like that, that still people have these applications. And I guess that you really have to be really conscious about the design decisions that you make, because first, if you are in a high stress environment, you don't want many options. So you really want to give the user the easiest way to get the job done. That's number one.
Yes.
And number two is, like, probably you just need a huge big button in the middle of the screen that you just press or not press. So sometimes, depending on the environment, you have to make a decision that, you know, it has to be very simple. Or sometimes you have the luxury to give more choice and give more beauty to the design, that sort of thing. And thinking about that, if imagine that now I'm a business owner, or I'm from procurement of some company, I'm from one department, I'm going out there, I'm trying to buy some software, and what should I look at? Because I know many people that they say, oh, I don't like the products of this company or this other company because they look old style or whatever it is. But is it really that important? Is this something that people should be looking at, or instead people should be looking at how proficient are their employees? Should they run a pilot first, or they just should go with a gut in terms of, well, I think my employees are going to understand or are going to get this really fast? How do you think about that? Because I think there's not real consensus. I've heard all kind of opinions out there in terms of making a decision about what software I'm going to buy, and sometimes it just boils down to the color scheme, which is, to me, is insane. But for some people that might be really important. So I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. For some people, I have stories like if you don't customize the system, like if you're selling to, I don't know, this company who have their main brand color is like lilac, and then they have to have all the software that they use have to be customizable in lilac because they want to and they pay for that, so it's fine. If that may be one reason, but because they drop one software for the other because customization. for instance. There are other reasons. We can talk about accessibility is a big topic in this. We can talk about that later. But basically, if in your case that you were like your hypothetical case that you were saying, if you are looking for, if you're gonna base your decision in the quality of the user experience, which I have to say it doesn't happen that much. Like you base your decision in implementation cost, adoption cost, or basically the return on investment that you're gonna get for the system, like the estimate over that. Like rarely is on user experience, unfortunately for us, so for me, and for the end users, of course. But basically, you will get a demo, usually a live demo. If you get a demo in a PowerPoint and a bunch of slides just run from that meeting. don't talk anymore. If you don't get a live demo, run. That's one thing that I can definitely, with all my heart.
But it doesn't lie at PowerPoint. It's just a slide. It's just the slides.
Yeah. You don't see the system running in any demo environment.
Exactly. It's a live thing.
Yeah. If you don't see a live demo, run for the company, because they are selling you the cat in the sack. So that's basically what they are selling you. When you're gonna get a lot of problems to integrate that, to actually get to use it. They're basically selling you the cat in the sack. The other thing that customizable, custom. That thing that you can change the colors. It's also very important for some companies. That may be your thing. If you are, for instance, a government agency or something with public money, they have guidelines that they have to be accessible. All the software that they have to buy is accessible, for instance. That is a big topic. Or have to be in different languages, because you are a global company and you have in different places, you have to use the system with different languages. That's just globalization, for instance. That may be one aspect. But basically, when you're getting that live demo we're talking about, if you see the system as, if your first impression the system is very complicated, the system is very complicated. If you are shopping around with different systems, go for the ones who first, of course, have the feature that you want. On second, if you are taking into account user experience, I hope you do, the ones that seems to you the easiest. So it doesn't matter how it looks, because usually when you're buying from a small vendor, they are using one library from whatever open source library they have. They certainly doesn't have a designer in-house. So it's basically the developers doing the UI and the UX. Or maybe the lead developer having some say about it, or maybe the CTO or the CEO of the company or the marketing guys having some say about it. But basically, small companies doesn't have a designer. On small B2C companies do have a designer usually, at least for marketing. But the B2B companies, though, the enterprise software, they don't. They basically fail miserably doing user experience, because it's not about nice colors or nice proportion or using a UI library with components that look nice. It's how you build. Again, we're talking about flows. We're talking about solving business problems through design. Like, how do you solve, like, your employee have to do like 100 support cases a day, for instance. How do you aid that employee to do 100 cases a day? The design solution can be different things. There can be, they will be totally different if you ask. If you ask the support representative, they will say, oh, I need a clone, and then I will do like 100 cases a day, right? If you are as a developer, they will say, oh yeah, just show them all the open cases, and then they can just do a big list with open cases on an agreed or whatever. If you, as a designer, one of the solutions that just off the top of my mind is like give them like encapsulated answers that they can just on one click answer that, because the problems that they will encounter will be the same. Like make that accessible. If you have the support request, the system is intelligent enough, like give you the suggested encapsulated answers that fill in your name or your day, the name of the customer, sorry, whatever. That will be one solution that I will come up from the design perspective, like solving a business problem through user experience design.
So in general, it would be a good idea. Like if you are a company that you have your processes well documented. So if you are using some sort of process mining or something like that, and then the ideal case would be that the user experience matches those processes that you have. That the distance, so to speak, between the existing processes that you already have, and that the tool is enabling you to do is not that big. That will be the ideal case if you are like shopping for a software that might help you to solve a problem. In case that you already have a process in place and you just want to streamline that process, right?
Yeah. I mean, the people go to certain lanes, which I know for a fact there are a lot of integration partners that help the companies integrate enterprise software. They basically, some of the enterprise pros are so bad that the integration partner do a UI on top of another user experience on top to communicate with that system. So
that I've seen.
Go figure.
That I've seen.
Yeah. So go figure. It's all because the original system that you buy is too complicated for the normal user to use. So you have to the integrator partner make a level of abstraction, or maybe with a different roles, with different screen, with different forms, with different flows for the different personas, basically. But those again, the integration partner rarely have a designer in there.
That's a very good point, because I think from the B2B perspective, also something that, especially now with the emergence of the whole low code, no code environments, you often see people who are API providers. So their business is to provide you the service, which is the API, and then just outsource, or they let you take over the user experience. So you implement the front end with whatever tool you want. If you have a low code environment or no code environment, then you implement a user interface, and then you connect back to that API, and then you customize how the end users are going to use that. Or some service integrators, they just use these APIs as a way of or they sell that as a white label service. So I give you the API, you implement the front end, whatever you want, and then you resell it the way you are. And I've seen several of those cases in different aspects, in different areas. So I've seen it in infrastructure. I've seen it also in more business-oriented thing. But I think that's an interesting business model. You mentioned a while ago the accessibility topic, and I think that's an important one. How do you define accessibility, and what is important? Because I think accessibility is a wide range of topics, and I think, especially, I don't know, I have heard that men, for instance, we tend to have this problem with perception of, how do you call that, the thing between green and red,
colorblind.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought that was a myth, because I never heard about that before. But then I met a bunch of colleagues that actually they couldn't tell the difference. And so, oh wow, this is actually a thing. And there is some software that make strong use of these color patterns to differentiate things. And I was thinking like, oh wow, they are not really thinking too much about these people, which is an important percentage of the population.
Yeah. Well, accessibility, which is different from usability. We can talk about usability a little bit more later. But basically, accessibility is making your product accessible to disabled or impaired people. So people will have problem with with sight, people with have problem with like color blindness, for instance, or they are short-sighted. They have to use a very big zoom on the screen. Basically, there's a set of standard guidelines that you can follow to make sure that your product, if you follow all the guidelines, then your product is accessible. And that includes, like, if you have a web application, for example, all the elements have to be, like, the HTML code have to be built in a way that the screen reader can read it out loud to vision impaired users.
Yeah,
so you have to
important
build your application in that way. Or maybe the impaired user cannot use a mouse, will have to use only the keyboard. So your software has to be also be used
to be able to navigate.
It should be also be used only with the keyboard.
Yeah.
What you were saying about or before that, there is also about, like, element size on the screen, like the test on those standard, like the minimum test that you can have, in combination with the contrast, like the contrast that you have to have between the background on the text color of the foreground. It should be enough. And there are, of course, software that go through your software, measure all that, measure all the button, all the contrast, and tell you exactly where the problem is and how far you are from the contrast ratio that you need to have. The color blindness is like, you shouldn't rely in one visual aspect to represent information. Like, for instance, if you have a simple example, you have a bar chart, right? With or a pie chart. A pie chart is easy. So in a pie chart, you have like 3 colors, right? So don't rely on color only. You put the 3 colors, but also put a pattern, a different pattern. So in one you have horizontal stripes, in the other one you have dots, and in the other one you have squares. And then the people cannot differentiate colors, but they can differentiate patterns. So that's one way to solve that.
That's particularly helpful when you are getting the Kindle version of a book, and then it's black and white, and then you don't.
Yes.
And they're telling you, look at the red part of the chart, and then you're like, what red part of the chart?
Yeah. Red part of the chart,
black and white. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So, but accessibility, again, if you're selling software to governments in almost every part of the world, they have this accessibility compliance. And basically, the standard guidelines of accessibility, they give you a rating. If you are AA, AAA, standard compliant, then you can sell to those institutions, for instance. That's a very big thing. If you're a big software vendor, then you probably are working with this integrated in your design workflow. Yeah. Not only design, but development as well, because you have to develop it. I've made the keyword available. All the elements should have to be navigated by the keyword, screen reader, etc., etc., etc.
That's fascinating, because I think that's oftentimes an aspect of software or tooling in general that is overlooked dramatically, because people think, well, you know what, I'm thinking about me, I'm the designer, I'm the person who's building this, and if I can use it, it's fine, it's fine. But it's not. I mean, you have to, especially if you're trying to address a wider market, probably you want to keep in mind that there's people out there with different abilities to access your product and to use your product, and perhaps you want to offer all of them the possibility to use it and to make the best out of it. So I think, accessibility in general is a great thing. I recall also that, to me, same with the localization. Localization was also a really interesting topic to me, because when I was in the game industry, I recall that one of the games that the company was selling, they were in Arabic countries, and so you have to what's the first time actually I saw
right to left. Yeah,
exactly. They had to mirror the text in the website. Actually, they mirror the whole design, and
Yeah,
they
yeah, you have to
were
mirror the whole design. It's a
exactly.
right to left
And,
system.
and you have to be mindful because there are design elements that were not meant to be mirrored. But if you
Yes.
want to go to those markets, then you have to keep that in mind. Same if you are going to, you know, if you're doing it in Hebrew, or if you're going to Japan, or, you know, there are many markets where it makes sense to be mindful. Perhaps, you know, your software can be mirrored and still can work, and people can be productive in those environments.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so I think that's definitely something that is overlooked and is good to keep in mind. You were talking about the whole certification thing. We don't want to go too deep about the
Before you go to the next question about the different markets, I was working back in the day in one product, especially working with colleagues in China, like building features, especially for the China market. Like it was very, very special. I have a fond memory for that. Like the way they use the web, or the way they use the system we are working on in the China market was different than people in the West. So we have to cope with that. We have to build that features for our customers in Asia, because people were expecting that the system to behave that way. So we have to have those features. Yeah.
That's an interesting one. That brings me to also an interesting topic, which is how do you match the user experience with the engineering part of the tech or the technical requirements? Because I guess if you are building one software code base, so you have a team of engineers, and now suddenly you want to be able to plug in, so to speak, different experiences for different countries. Probably you don't want to have 3 different code bases. So do you have some ideas on how you can abstract the experience in a way that still can communicate and can deal with the constraints of engineering? Do you have some experiences there?
No, basically from the design, from the technical part, I can't talk only superficially, but from the design standpoint, is you try to keep all the most element commons as possible. Like in the case I was talking before, there were certain flows, like concrete example, e-commerce, people in China, from what I know, but I'm talking about 5 years ago. So from what I know, people in China do have different lists on different shopping carts. When they are putting stuff in the shopping carts for different occasions during the year, they are buying or ordering that shopping cart in different occasions during the year, which is a buying pattern which was for me really new, because it's different from the West. In the West, like it's more short term, let's say.
Yeah, yeah.
Or you maybe have a wish list, so you buy like one item every 3 months for the wish list. But that was basically the feature. Is like we need to have to manage like many shopping carts for when the people will actually. It was not a wish list; it was basically a shopping cart. You can load your shopping cart and put it in the shopping cart and just pay it. The only thing that was missing was payment. Just pay it, and then the whole process started. But you have to have the shopping cart with the shipping calculation, with all the taxes, all the stuff saved for when the user decided to basically order. Also, the way that the talking again about commerce, how the store is structured is different in Asia than in the West. So the design is like, I don't know if you have been to Tencent.
No, but I've
storefront.
been at
Alibaba.
AliExpress. Yeah,
yeah.
and it's a different experience. It's like it's you have more information to your fingertips. Let me put it that way.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's a little bit overwhelming because we design-wise in the West, we are more into the minimalistic, plain design.
Yeah.
By the way, we can talk about design directions or design styles and later on. That's also a very big topic.
Yeah, but I've seen it. I've seen it in AliExpress. I also have seen it in Rakuten, I think is the name of this
Yeah,
Japanese shop.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's Japanese. Yeah,
yeah. I also seen it. However, I've seen also some other. But again, this is B2C, so my differ. I've seen some Japanese brands, especially that they have also clean designs. Especially
yes,
the color palette they use is very calm. That I like a lot.
yes,
But
yes.
they have a lot of text everywhere. That's kind of different. That's what I noticed.
Yeah,
And then they have a lot of poppy text. So they have like red and black, and
yeah.
then it's on top of the images, and but then on the other side on the background is very like pastel colors. So it's interesting. It's different. It's just different.
Yeah, it's different. It's different.
Mm.
It's a different culture with different expectation. For instance, for Japan, I know that for you are used to like you put something in the shopping cart, you click pay, you click buy, you put your address there, you put your payment details, and you click okay,
Mhm.
right? The items in your shopping cart was in the first steps, for instance, if you have your store built that way.
Mhm.
In Japan, they expect the last step is a summary of everything,
Mhm.
like the items that you have, how many items, what color, what size, when it will arrive, the shipping cost, the task cost, your address again, your
Mhm.
payment system again. And then they review that thoroughly, like very carefully, and then they click buy. For instance, this is a different um, behavioral
Mhm.
pattern that they have that I know of in Japan. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, sometimes I would like to also have that, especially if I'm buying something in websites that it's the first time I'm buying something. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I would really like to have exactly what what I'm putting my data and the whole thing. But yeah, oftentimes I don't get it. But well, e-commerce is different from the B2B
Yes.
space.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
talking about mistakes and weird stuff that might happen or different experiences, what are some common mistakes that you see that UX designers do in B2B applications that you think are easily avoidable, but many
Mhm.
people are not aware of them? So what are
Yes.
one of those?
Well, for since a couple of years now, or yeah, a couple of years now, like don't assume that people will read what is on a screen. So if you put some kind of instructions, some kind of explanatory text, people don't going to read that. People are gonna click away and try to figure it out on their own. And if they don't figure it out, they will go back, maybe read that. And if they still don't figure it out, maybe they will get to the documentation. So basically assume people doesn't read. That's the main thing. There's one important thing. The other thing is that don't reinvent the wheel. Like if you are doing a process like sending a message in your enterprise software, whatever that means, make it similar to sending an email because everybody knows how to send an email. So make it similar. Reuse the pattern. There's no copying. It's like reuse the pattern that people are used to, so they don't have to think. One of the easiest books that I encountered about user experience design is called "Don't Make Me Think."
Mm.
It's a very good um, principle to live by. Like, don't make the user think firstly because they are doing their job, so they are not by entertaining in your system. Your system is not entertainment; it's work. So try to be the less annoyed. Try to annoy less the user.
Mhm.
Like maybe don't ask for the confirmation when they save something or when they just say, oh, do you want to really save that? Maybe don't do that. Maybe do the opposite. Maybe it's like, oh, you want to modify that? Do it the other way around. Like,
Mhm.
okay, you modified it, give them the possibility to undo that. So it's less intrusive into the workflow.
Yeah, I've
Because
seen
if
I've
I
seen
have to, yeah.
yeah, I've seen tools that they have, for instance, autosave, and then they're just simply saving everything you're doing. So when you leave, when you
that's a
leave,
big
when you leave it,
advantage.
yeah, when you leave a screen, or if your browser crashes or whatever it is, yeah, you're fine.
Yeah. Also with navigation, like have a place where the people can navigate all of your system from one place. Don't make it like go to this department and click on this card, and then from this card to this list, and for this list get to this stuff. Don't make that flow that far. So try to simplify.
So let us close this with a question that I think that most people who's watching this might be thinking about, because I think that's is trending right now, which is the chats. So now we have again the rise of the chats again with AI. What do you think about these conversational user interfaces? Because at the end of the day, many of these agents, this is what they are. Now they are powered by AI. I mean, we have chatbots for a while right now, but essentially what they were conversational user interfaces. Now, again, they have some intelligence in the back end. What do you think about them? Are they effective in the business environment? Are they not? How people can leverage them? What are your thoughts about them?
Yeah, from the design standpoint, I think this is challenging how to design for AI, because you are designing actually not, you are designing for the interaction again between a man and a machine, but this time it's not like click and point on order, give orders like you usually do with a computer, do this, do that. It's like retrieving information, on displaying that information, making sense of that information, actually combine that, or it's a fluid conversation. So it's a totally different kind of user experience. If I may bring my crystal ball and say how it look like a little bit in the future, is like you will have these AIs pulling information from different sources and presenting you in a different way, like little widgets, little cards, pieces of information that you need right now. Like it may be that you have a database with 100 records, but you need only 10. Well, the AI will bring you these 10 in a small little table, will present them to you. And from there, you can say like, okay, give me the first one and do this with that. So basically, that is my crystal ball, with, of course, it's a little bit opaque or made or not that clear. I can see that coming. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think with that we can wrap this up here.
Yes,
Because
sure,
I think we can go on and on the user experience. We can hours in that, because I think again in the B2B space you see some improvement and you see some experiments, but sometimes people could be doing much more on both sides, on the development side, but also when you are getting a new tool for your employees.
I think before we go, we can drop a piece of knowledge for our friends who build software. It's like right now, like everything is in the cloud, and you have your contracts like from month to month, or automatically you just register with your credit card. Like the user experience becomes more important, because the integration on the stuff is really not that difficult nowadays. So they can drop you in a split second if they get a system that will have a little bit better user experience. So it's becoming more and more important.
So you think stickiness could be directly impacted by the user experience if especially in the B2B space, if people if the commitment,
you have a better user experience.
If their commitment is just a monthly basis, then it makes more sense that to have a good user experience, because people might churn. I think that's something. I think that's something that people should keep in mind, that if you make people's life harder in this environment, people might churn. You. Yeah, exactly. They're gonna churn more way faster.
Way faster.
Yeah, that's true.
I think there is a good wrap. So if you want to contact us, the email will be down below. In that note, see you next week.
Yeah, see you then. Bye.